What's up, everybody? Welcome to SLC Puck. It is absolutely steaming hot outside, and the free agency market's kind of cooled off a little bit. A day later, talking to you guys here on July 2nd. Thank you for joining me, your host, Austin Facer, on another exciting edition of SLC Puck, twice a week. Talking a little Utah hockey here, and we have lots to talk about. A lot happened from our last episode on Sunday. Some new names, some new faces on the Utah Mammoth, some observations we made about guys in the pipeline as well. So we'll get into all of that in just a little bit here. But before we do so, hey, I just want to remind you guys, this is an independently funded podcast venture taking place in a basement. What can I say? I'm a millennial. I don't have my own house yet, so I need you guys to help me make this possible here. Look at Puckovision. We can see here. A great way to support the show is heading over to slcpuck.shop. We've got the Big Tusk Energy merch. Everything's $25 or less. Hats, t-shirts, stickers, bucket hats even. I think those are back in vogue nowadays, so make sure you check that out. And like, comment, subscribe. That's another great way to support the show and what we're doing here at SLC Puck. But yes, we are here. A lot has happened, and there's a lot to talk about today. Some of the things that we were maybe anticipating, hoping for, praying for. I know Governor Cox has been asking us to pray for rain. So where's the rain, guys? Have you not been doing that? I'm kidding, of course. I'm sure it'll come. But I think those of us were also hoping for some huge free agency acquisitions for the Utah Mammoth, like, say, a guy like Mitch Marner or perhaps Brad Marchand. Those prayers were not answered. They went elsewhere. Marchand re-signed with the Florida Panthers on a 6-year deal. He'll be under contract until he's 43 years old, so good for him. It makes a lot of sense why the Utah Mammoth wouldn't sign a contract like that. So, good for Marchand, and we'll let him enjoy the Florida sunshine there. Florida re-signed a lot of their guys. They didn't re-sign a couple of them, though. A couple of those guys headed our way. Mitch Marner, I should mention, you may have heard, involved in a sign and trade that saw him go to the Vegas Golden Knights. But hey, we did get some guys, and we also shipped out another one, a familiar face that we remember from last season. Had a disappointing year. He's going to find greener pastures in Toronto. I'm talking about Matias Maccelli, who was traded to the Maple Leafs in exchange for a conditional third-round pick in the 2027 NHL draft. So we wish you well, Matias Maccelli. Hopefully you get back into your pre-Utah form and you have a wonderful time up there in Toronto. We'll be down here in Utah getting ready to win every staring competition known to man, because we've acquired 3 new guys, and 2 of them are fantastic starers. And I'm going to do a really quick impression of one of them right here into the camera as best I can. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can't see this, but what I'm trying to do is my very best Brandon Tanev impression. If you know what I'm talking about, look at this guy right here. This is an iconic headshot that he's been doing every year for his entire life. It was funny to, they talked about the media spoke with Bill Armstrong about some of these free agent acquisitions. First thing they said about Brandon Tanev, who goes by Turbo, by the way, as a nickname. So lots to like about this guy. Like, yeah, he's got a heck of a headshot, and his agent says he's going to be a cult hero here in Utah, and it's pretty easy to see why. I mean, gosh, that's truly tremendous stuff there. Really excited to see this headshot with him wearing a Utah Mammoth sweater. But other guys signed to deals with the Utah Mammoth include Nate Schmidt, former Florida Panther, won the Stanley Cup with the boys down there in the Sunshine State this year, as well as Vitek Vanecek, who's the other guy who's a tremendous starer. And if you forgot this in this moment in the Stanley Cup Finals, I will remind you, I thought this was hilarious. To me, this was the moment, this happened in Game 4 of the Finals, where I was like, okay, this is how I know Florida is going to win this championship, because Again, I'll just play this video here.
Held on to this for just a few minutes. Vitek Vanecek, I don't know if he's doing some dirty work here on the part of the
Look at that.
The Panthers, a stare down between the goalies, the backup goalie and the
Pre-game warm-ups.
By the way, Anthony Stolarz did the exact same thing in Game 7 to Stuart Skinner.
That is so funny. Okay, I mean, obviously, it was funny to watch that on TNT, and the commentators were all reacting to that in real time. Gretzky, Bissonnette, Anson Carter, all them. They were looking at that like, holy cow. The Panthers must have scouted Skinner. They know he likes to go to that corner of the center ice area to get in the zone and stretch. And Florida's response, Vitek Vanecek, was sent over there to stare him down, get in his head a little bit. And as we saw how the finals turned out, that might have been an effective strategy. So, again, we've got a team here, guys, in Utah that can win every staring contest known to man. And they also have a tremendous chance to win a lot of hockey games as well. I think the consensus on this is that these are some really, really terrific acquisitions. Is it Mitch Marner? It's not, but that was not going to happen for the Utah Mammoth. He signs a monster deal that's going to have him in a Vegas Golden Knights uniform for 8 seasons. So I think that timeline, again, doesn't fit the trajectory of what Bill Armstrong wants to do with the Mammoth. And then, as I said, Marchand, getting a 6-year deal. Again, that was a little bit too much term for what the Utah Mammoth are hoping to accomplish. They want to have this organic group that's going to come up and work together. And now they're adding a couple of really solid veteran presences. And a guy like Brandon Tanev is a guy who Utah hockey fan. I keep almost saying Utah Hockey Club. They've been the Mammoth now for almost 2 months. Let's get with it, guys. But Brandon Tanev, I think he's someone that Utah Mammoth fans are going to be really, really excited about. One comparison that I keep seeing people make is that he's like a version of Spicy Tuna, who perhaps may see the ice a little bit more, right? Is a little more reliable in certain situations. I mean, the Mammoth just posted this nice little infographic on Tanev right here. Pumped on this one. I'm pretty pumped on it as well. This is a guy whose name has been around for a while, especially in meme circles. So our guy Jazzy Pinkman is going to have a field day with this dude. And Jazzy Pinkman, obviously one of the great memers in the Utah Mammoth universe. We see here just some quick stats right here. 235 block shots. It's going to give Ian Cole a run for his money as the team's leader in block shots. 2 minutes and 21 seconds shorthanded time on ice games played, so that he's going to be able to contribute to some special teams there, particularly shorthanded, and 180 career points. So this is a guy who brings a lot of grit. And by the way, speaking of Jazzy Pinkman, look at this. Look at that meme he made. Truly fantastic work there. We appreciate you, Jazzy Pinkman. But this is a guy who's going to bring a lot of grit to the Utah Mammoths, and he becomes the elder statesman of the group. I believe he's now by far the oldest of the forward group at 33 years old. I think the next oldest is Kevin Stenlund at 29. I might be wrong on that. That one I'm just going off the top of the head. I know for sure Tanev is now the oldest forward on the group, and this is it's a tremendous signing for the Utah Mammoth because again it's a guy who can play in these difficult situations. It's not easy to play shorthanded to kill penalties, but this guy's reliable. He can absolutely chuck some knuckles as well. Let me just find this. Cole Bagley had a really awesome video he posted here. Let me just find that really quick. But again, just imagine like a lot of the things that, if Liam O'Brien can do, he would find the ice a lot more. This is what Chris Tanev can do. And here we go. Yep, here's Cole Bagley's tweet right here. I'm telling you, you are going to love Tanev in a Mammoth sweater. This is him when he's playing for the Kraken. Might have been part of last year or the year before. But the dude was absolutely like firing some missiles here. Let's turn that down. Look at those fists are flying. Goodness gracious. So I think, again, he's going to be someone that is going to be relied on heavily. He's not going to be a healthy scratch very often. He's going to be someone who's going to be injected into the lineup every game. You would say the same about Nate Schmidt, who comes over from the Florida Panthers, along with Vitek Vanecek, who's going to be the presumed backup to Karel Vejmelka, while Connor Ingram's status is still a little bit up in the air, right? He's in the player assistance program. We don't know when he's coming back, but we wish him well as he continues to get the help he needs. But there's a lot to feel good about with this group. I think, again, we see a lot of character guys, a lot of guys who bring grit, who bring like Stanley Cup championship experience. That seems to be something that Bill Armstrong is really big on. If you're a guy with size, a guy who can, defend himself and his teammates and improve the culture and flex a little Stanley Cup experience, I think that, you're going to have the Utah Mammoth's attention. And I think it's really great. I think we're seeing a lot of teams right now are trying to emulate the Florida Panthers model, like how they're winning Stanley Cups. Obviously, they're on top of the world right now. They've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. So the best way perhaps to, sort of learn about their approach and perhaps embody it, bring in some of those guys. Bring in some of those guys who have been in that locker room and hope it rubs off on the guys in the Utah Mammoth locker room. I think that's something they're going to ask a lot out of Nate Schmidt and Vitek Vanecek. And I got to tell you, I think we're seeing this roster get full and solid right now. I mean, we'll just run through the line combinations on Daily Faceoff. These are just projected right now. We can see like that those top six look really solid in the forward group. Keller, Cooley, Gunther as the top line. These are just projected, of course, followed by Schmaltz, Barrett Hayton, and J.J. Peterka on the second. It gets a little more interesting here when you look at the bottom six. Lawson Krause, Jack McBain, who received a qualifying offer from the Utah Mammoth, so he may get an offer sheet from other teams, which the Mammoth would be able to match or not. But I think that's something to keep an eye on. We'll maybe have a development on that in the next episode. But again, you look at this, and you also consider the fact that we have some other guys coming up, in the prospect pool. A few guys that I saw this week at development camp, and I had the opportunity to attend the Monday sessions of development camp in Park City. And let me just say, first of all, I met with a lot of folks who listened to the show. That was like the hardcore Utah Mammoth audience there. It's so many folks there. I saw, Greg. I saw Daryl. And if I'm forgetting anybody's name, I apologize. You guys know who you are. It's the hardcore people. We're all there, and it was fun to talk with anybody. I felt like I was running my mouth the entire time, just with all the great conversations I had. So again, really appreciated being able to see everybody there. Alex Suter was there as well. Brian Acord, Matt was there as well. So big thanks to all you guys for coming up and saying hi and helping me have a good time. But hey, what's up, guys? Sorry for the interruption. I just want to remind you about the incredible giveaway promotion we have going on with Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. Remember, guys, it's the easiest giveaway you'll ever enter into. All you got to do is scan this QR code, hit send on the message. You'll be entered into a raffle to win a $250 gift card to either one of those spots. Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers at Trolley Square, Jonathan's Jewelry in Cottonwood Heights. I was just there at Jonathan's Jewelry in Cottonwood Heights. It's very nice. There's lots of great stuff. $250 there. That sounds like a pretty good deal. So again, scan that QR code. But hey, tell you what, even if you don't win, you're still going to be in on the action. Just go into either one of those locations and mention SLC Puck, and they'll knock $100 off your purchase. So we really appreciate the support of Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry for what we're doing here at SLC Puck. Make sure you check them out, and let's get back to the show. As we were talking, and I'll get back to the roster situation here in just a second, but it was so interesting to watch development camp and see a lot of the Utah Mammoth's most talked about prospects on the ice, right? Like T. Jaginla, Caleb Denoye, Daniil Boot, Dmitry Shimashev, Michael Herbal, at goaltender, all these great things. And you get the feeling that there's going to be a really heated competition for perhaps just one roster spot, right? So, I mean, going back to the line combinations, I think we can pretty much say that, 11 of these 12 spots are pretty well set in stone, right? The one that's occupied right now by Liam O'Brien here on the line combinations. might be the one spot that's up for grabs. And guess who else is in that conversation? Liam O'Brien's going to be competing for that in training camp as well. So there's going to be a lot of great internal competition amongst the Utah Mammoth, the young bucks who want to come up and break into the league. Caleb Denoye made it very clear his goal is to make the NHL roster this season. I personally don't know if that's in the cards for him. He looks a little small on the ice. He's a terrific skater. I think Tej, from what I could tell, he's a little bit huskier. I think that'll help him on the ice. And he looked pretty smooth too. He had the double hip surgery last season, but he said his hips weren't bothering him at all. It didn't seem like it either, from what I could tell. It was cool to watch, right? We're sitting there in the Park City ice arena, ice center, whatever it's called. And it was awesome just to note how much time these guys who are a lot of them have, entry-level contracts, or a lot of them are on the verge of signing their ELC. They're essentially professional hockey players. They spent half of their first session on the ice just doing very simple edge work with their skates and weren't even, touching a puck, just had the three lines across the goal line, just working on their inside edge, outside edge, transitioning to backwards, forwards, like again, all the stuff that is done at the most basic level of hockey. They continue to do that at that level. So that was pretty fascinating to watch. I'll tell you else who looked really good was Daniil Boot, and he is a massive dude. You would not believe how much space that guy takes up on the ice. I think, he's 6'5". Skating was very smooth. I think he's going to have a very legitimate case to take one of these roster spots as well. So the competition in this summer is within the Mammoth's own building, and it's going to be a good one. I think, again, a lot of these guys, I think a lot of them are set in stone. They'll continue to work and earn their spot. But again, 11 of the 12 spots are probably set right now. It's that 12th spot, the wing on the fourth line, that's up for grabs. And I think you could make the case there's probably 3 or 4 guys who are going to be competing for that. So that's definitely something to watch. We'll move down to the defensive pairings now, post the Nate Schmidt signing. And this looks like a really solid defensive group. Obviously, Sergachev, Marino, Oli Mata, Sean Dursey, barring any injuries, right? We saw Sean Dursey and John Marino miss 50 games last year. That was devastating for the Utah Mammoth. But these guys all stay healthy. This is a really solid group. That last group, the last pairing, Ian Cole, Nate Schmidt, really, really solid. But they GMBA talked a little bit about how important it is to have a 7th defenseman ready to go, because it's a guy they might need to play about 50 games next season. So I think that duty could fall to Dmitry Shimashev or perhaps Maverick Lamoureux. So that's the internal battle right there. And I think, again, that's another storyline to watch. But I think we can feel really excited about this. I think there's a lot that happened for the Utah Mammoth in the last 24, 48 hours. I think the team got better in free agency, considerably better. And this feels like a team that's going to be very competitive to take the next step. Because you think about Mitch Marner, that's going to give us a big jump, right? Well, it might, but that big jump forward might look like moving 3 steps backwards. Eventually, right? As that contract continues to run its course. But here, I think this is a very calm, measured move to get to that next level, which is to play in the Stanley Cup final. After that, it's going to be making a deep run in the Stanley Cup final. That'll be the next step. And then the step after that, I would dare say, is perhaps winning a Stanley Cup. So very, very interesting, calculated moves. And here was the other thing that was kind of interesting about being at development camp. And we're all there. We're watching, the guys on the ice, and everybody's just kind of rubbing shoulders with the hockey operations people. Bill Armstrong was and his team were right behind us. Chris Armstrong as well. Andre Tourigny. I don't want to get his Janikowski. I don't want to get his name wrong. He's the head scout. I don't want to get his name wrong. I probably did. So apologies on that. But, so we saw these guys, Jankowski, Ryan Jankowski, excuse me, Daryl Plendowski. They were all there, working behind the scenes. And Monday was the 30th. So, what was going to happen in free agency was already kind of becoming clear. There were reports coming out as we were sitting there. It was so funny. Michael, who has been a great listener and supporter of the show, who lives up in Ogden, we're sitting there talking, and he turns around and breaks the Matias Michelli news to everyone as we're sitting there. And Bill Armstrong is watching Michael tell everybody this, and I'm sure Bill Armstrong is just kind of just keeping an eye on how everybody's, gathering their news a little bit. But Michael turns around and just shows up the tweet from Elliot Freeman. They're like, look, they traded Michelli. All right, what do you think they got? And then the banter started I don't know. And everybody had an opinion to make on that. And I'm like, well, the guy who made the call is sitting right behind us. So, I'm going to choose to rein it in a little bit of that. I think it was a great trade, by the way. I think it was a huge win that they got his entire contract off the books and sent over to Toronto. No salary retained by Utah. But again, it was so fascinating to sit there in the arena. Again, Bill Armstrong, Chris Armstrong, the rest of the hockey operations decision makers literally standing right behind where the seating area. And at times you could just see them look at their phones, take a phone call, doing their thing. They're working. They would, maybe step outside to meet and have a discussion. I know I also, I happened to overhear them, having a little bit of making some remarks about what was happening on the ice, doing their work. It was a really fascinating up close look at what the hockey operations was doing. So I know today they have their scrimmage at the Oval in front of the Utah Amateur Hockey Association kids. So I'm sure we'll see some more great content and thoughts from the brass on that. But again, it's silly season, as they like to say. I feel pretty good about, I'd say really good actually, about what the Utah Mammoth were able to accomplish in free agency. Chris Tanev. I mean, here's the other thing that's cool. They signed guys who want to be here. And Chris Tanev spoke to the media about this. He's like, listen, what's happening in Utah seems really cool. We've all seen it around the league. This is a team, they've got the young core. We've been amazed by, the time we've spent there, seeing how beautiful the area is, all that. It was something that I wanted to be a part of. Chris Tanev's 33 years old. He doesn't have a lot of time left to spend in the National Hockey League, right? He's just aging. It's the way it is. Unless he pulls a Brad Marchand and can find a way to stay in the league for another 10 years. Not everybody can do that, though. But the fact that he's willing to commit 3 years of his future to the Utah Mammoth, and he might get traded, he might not, we'll see. But but the fact that he's willing to make that commitment to the Mammoth, I think speaks a lot about where this program, where this team is headed. Nate Schmidt does the same thing. Obviously, he's not young either, but he's still got a lot left in the tank. And the fact that he wants to be a part of this after a great run with the Florida Panthers, there might have been some interest on his part in returning to Florida. Again, these are guys who have been around the block. Chris Tanev's played for a lot of different teams in the National Hockey League. Nate Schmidt's been on a few different teams as well. He played for Vegas, and then he played for Winnipeg, and most recently with Florida, right? So guys have seen the hockey world, and these dudes, with all the opportunity they have to sign with any team who will take them, right? It's not a bad place to be in. They're choosing to be in Utah, and I think that's something that was maybe shocking to us sports fans here in Utah. I remember the Jazz signed Randy Foy one year, who had been a former lottery selection as a free agent, and that was kind of a shocking grab for the Utah Jazz. And I think he went on to have a great year, and had a really high number of 3-point shots, shot at a very effective percentage. But we don't usually see that in Utah. But again, it's a different crowd that the Utah Mammoth is dealing with. It seems to be an easy sell to the hockey world, and I think we're seeing that pay off. And it's exciting to see this team come together in such a big way. So we'll continue to watch free agency unfold. We'll get to some other goofs and gaffs along the way. We'll fill up some time. Again, we still have quite a bit to go before we get to our first game at the end of September. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of SLC Puck. I'm your host, Austin Facer. Remember that. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, tell all your friends. Merch at bigtuskenergy.com. And I don't know. We'll talk to you soon.